Hey, good morning,
Good
Bethany.
morning.
Oh, Jenny's on there quick
Oh, yeah.
with the butterfly. I think it's a butterfly.
It is a butterfly. I don't
Unless
think
it's a
the
gang
butterflies are
sign.
flying this morning. It's so rainy.
So
Good morning,
rainy.
Doug.
Oops. Whoop. I don't know where I'll go.
I don't know. Good morning, Rebecca. Yeah, it's pretty rainy. Curtains on this side.
Yeah, well, let some other people get on this morning. It has been just wet and rainy.
Just yesterday.
Yeah, but I feel like there's been a couple big.
Was there
No,
another day
it
that
rained.
you
It
came
rained.
home
It
soon?
rained. Remember,
Came
I
home
rode my
early?
motorcycle Monday and it stormed. And I thought,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I
Wasn't
remember.
supposed to rain.
I remember I was like, "Hey, is it gonna rain?" And you're like, "No," and then it was like the worst thunderstorm ever in history.
It was not. Good morning, sis. It wasn't that bad.
It was funny because like Jessica was like, "Hey," from BKLC, she's like, "Hey, you might want to grab a towel. We have some downstairs. Your seat's probably soaking wet." And I was like, it was so much later. I stayed at the church. It was like it dried off. But
So I probably dried by then.
I just told her it'd be a reminder of how much I don't like riding my motorcycle in the rain. It's not fun. Good morning, sis. Yeah. You got anything open other than this weather? That is such a weird thing that people talk about the weather. I mean, it's part of it's easy. We're all in it together. Like none of us can change it. It's a common ground.
Yes, Rebecca, it did cool off with the rain, which is nice. It's been so humid lately. Like you stand outside and you sweat, or you feel like you can't breathe.
Yeah.
I read something yesterday that like we're expected to like the smog from the Canadian fires are supposed to be really bad again. Good morning, Tammy. Good morning, Kelly. I was actually kind of hoping that this rain would like break that up or clear that up or something. Good morning, Tracy. Yeah, I don't know if you guys weren't expecting us because I know Amanda the other day said, "Hey, I'll see you on Thursday." So surprise, it's not Amanda.
On Tuesday, me.
Oh, yeah, I said the other day. Yeah. Good morning, Amanda. But there's different vacations and things, and so we did some switchings around for everybody, and so it's just a surprise.
We like to just mess you guys up.
Yeah.
Mess around, Yeah, and then it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be you're never gonna know who's gonna be on soap on Thursdays.
Or just on any day, because Amanda was on Tuesday the other day.
Yeah, we're mixing it up.
Good morning, Margaret. Yeah, I'm gonna mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, I got a feeling that's how soap's gonna go this morning. We were both talking about soap this morning. There's sometimes where you guys know, like we read the Bible and things just jump out at you, and you're like, man, I got this deep thought, and I got this, and this last night and this morning was not one of those times for me. It's a story I've read many times. I never really dug into it. There's probably even some way deeper things in here. And so right now it's going to be probably kind of like at face value, but I have some thoughts on some of it. But I have like verse by verse, I have thoughts and things like that. And I don't this morning. So maybe this morning I'm going to be watching the comments. Maybe you guys got some great insights for us this morning. I know there's probably lots of questions. I have lots of questions when I read these types of chapters in the Bible. I'm like, what, how, what? It doesn't make sense, those kind of things. And I think this morning is one of those stories in the Bible we read. It's like, how or why did, God let that happen, or how, what? And so, yeah.
I'm sorry you missed soap on Tuesday, Rebecca. Amanda was on, right? It was Tuesday.
Yeah, Amanda was on.
Yeah. She was on for Pastor Matt.
So
to go back and watch it, I guess.
If nothing else, this will get us talking or get us thinking a little bit. But I don't know if I have any super huge answers. So don't get too crazy with me on the comments. So, but we'll
or the questions you can have comments.
We'll hash it out. We'll hash it out together.
Good morning, Karen.
In the time frame we have. So we are in Genesis, and yesterday, Pastor Mark and Megan were talking about the beginning of our story, Genesis chapter 25. It's a story of Esau and Jacob. And
Tracy, she's kind of shy online. It's hard for her to ask questions.
yeah, actually, I'm gonna be honest, Tracy. We were talking this morning. I go, Tracy's gonna hit me with some real big questions, and I'm not sure this morning I'm ready. But ask away, and if something, if I don't have something, somebody else will, and if not, then we'll all have it in our minds, and we'll think about it throughout the day, and hopefully we'll dig back into it this afternoon. Um, but yeah, ask away. But that's funny. I love it. I think, listen, to be honest though, like this is what we need to do. You know,
Right.
I think in our faith, we need to ask the big questions. We need to examine these things, and I think it's so healthy. Like I said, if I don't have the answers, I'm not gonna. I won't pretend I have the answers, um, but yeah, that's why I think this is so. The morning session like this is so um powerful, and because we can do this live together, and we're studying, right? We're not just reading the word, we're studying the word. And so yeah, I think it's good. So yeah, so the story starts, and now we're going to continue on the story of these characters, right? So Genesis 27, we're in verses 1 through 29 this morning.
So yesterday, when with Mark and Megan, we read that Jacob convinced Esau to give him his birthright. So today, when we're continuing the story, a couple chapters later, it's titled "Jacob Steals Esau's Blessing."
I didn't get to watch their soap yesterday, so I'm sure Mark and Megan had like some real great insights, as they always do. I don't know, for you guys who were on yesterday, or maybe yourself, like I always thought that was a weird story where Esau, who's a skilled hunter, um, you know, it didn't really say if he'd been out there for an hour, hours,
He had to have been out there for a long
days.
time. Yeah, because he said he
We
was famished.
said he was, just couldn't even, exhausted,
He was starving. He thought
and
he was
made
starved
his
to
way
death.
to his brother, who probably seemed like he probably didn't venture out as much as Esau, right? Probably stayed around close to his mama,
Okay, listen. So before you go on like being a mama's boy, so one of the things that Mark said yesterday was the fact that most people back then, like there it was a family thing where they didn't like Abraham stayed around, like he had servants. They had plenty of servants that would go
Mhm.
off and do things, right? So they were the property managers. They kind of stayed home. They stayed at the homestead and they did the things and whatever there. They didn't necessarily go off and wander about. Um so Abraham was the same way, Isaac was that way, and so Jacob was that way, which normally would have been the property manager kind of person, would have been usually the oldest son. Jacob was not the oldest son. So this was an interesting thing that he said yesterday. So that was kind of a little bit of a flip flop in positions already. The fact that the older son was being a little bit less responsible by not staying home to help with the family property management, I guess you could say.
Gotcha.
But Isaac loved the fact that his son loved to hunt because he loved wild game and he thought it was a cool. He thought it was cool. So I think that's why
Yeah, and
Isaac
I think
loved
too
Esau.
we get this idea, yeah, this whole, like, Esau's a mama's boy, and and Isaac was his dad's guy, like like, but Jacob wrestled with God. You know what I'm saying? Like we paint this picture like maybe he was a little more, weaker than the other ones, this burly, hunter guy. Not necessarily, right? That's not. And obviously, God's seeing something in Jacob, and also, like I said, he wrestles with God. Like, so it wasn't like he was just like, we get these weird. We put in our lens of our culture today and things, and
Right.
it's not really accurate.
Right.
To
He
that.
wasn't just sitting around the kitchen making bread all day.
And like you're saying, if that was the case of, like, Jacob was helping, manage the family,
Right.
which is what we'll talk
Which
about
was
today.
huge because they had a huge. I mean,
Yeah.
they were.
Talk about today, and like, God's promises throughout. I know we're kind of going, but it's going to together. So, like,
That's fine.
when you think about that, like that fact of, like, Jacob wasn't just, at home, painting and playing his, playing harp or whatever, like, or doing whatever, like David maybe, like, like he was leading and managing, which is God's calling people to lead, nations, whatever. Wow, homeboy's out going hunting, and doing this thing,
Wandering around the woods. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something. I think there's something to those things being connected.
Yeah.
In God's bigger picture and God's bigger purpose.
Yeah, and part of even one of the, I think Mark, because I remember Mark like referred to today's, passage of, stealing the blessing and stuff, that might have been part of the reason why um, Jacob felt like, hey, I deserve the bigger blessing, or the bigger inheritance, because he stole the birthright to get the bigger inheritance. He felt like, he probably felt like, I'm here helping manage the property while you're off doing whatever. And so he didn't feel guilty stealing, asking for the bigger birthright, because it didn't mean that Esau wasn't going to get nothing. It just meant that the one getting the birthright would get double the inheritance, and the other child would get less. But then same thing with like today's scripture, which we'll read in just a second. Maybe that's kind of how Rebecca felt. Like, here is my responsible son helping manage the family stuff already. Like, he deserves the bigger blessing, which we'll talk about, like the spiritual side of that too. But
yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead
All right,
and
let's read it.
Yeah.
Let's read it, then we'll talk more. There's some things you guys got in the comments I want to hit on here in a minute.
Okay.
But go ahead, let's start with verse 1 through 29.
All right. It's a lot of verses.
All right.
One day when Isaac was old and turning blind, he called for Esau, his older son, and said, "My son." "Yes, father," Esau replied. "I am an old man now," Isaac said, "and I don't know when I may die. Take your bow and your quiver full of arrows and go out into the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare my favorite dish and bring it here for me to eat. Then I will pronounce the blessing that belongs to you, my firstborn son, before I die." But Rebekah overheard what Isaac had said to his son Esau. So when Esau left to hunt for the wild game, she said to her son Jacob, "Listen, I overheard your father say to Esau, 'Bring me some wild game and prepare me a delicious meal. Then I will bless you in the Lord's presence before I die. Now, my son, listen to me. Do exactly as I tell you. Go out to the flocks and bring me 2 fine young goats." He's preparing one meal. Why'd she need 2 goats? Oh my gosh, you pray for a whole nation.
Maybe his carnivore ate a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of food. "I'll use them to prepare your father's favorite dish. Then take the food to your father so he can eat it and bless you before he dies." "But look," Jacob replied to Rebekah, "my brother Esau is a hairy man and my skin is smooth. What if my father touches me? He'll see that I'm trying to trick him, and then he'll curse me instead of blessing me." But his mother replied, "Then let the curse fall on me, my son. Just do what I tell you. Go out and get the goats for me." So Jacob went out and got the young goats for his mother. Rebekah took them and prepared a delicious meal, just the way Isaac liked it. Then she took Esau's favorite clothes, which were there in the house, and gave them to her younger son Jacob. She covered his arms and the smooth part of his neck with the skin of the young goats. Then she gave Jacob the delicious meal, including freshly baked bread. So Jacob took the food to his father. "My father," he said. "Yes, my son," Isaac answered. "Who are you, Esau or Jacob?" Jacob replied, "It's Esau, your firstborn son. I've done as you've told me. Here is the wild game. Now sit up and eat so you can give me your blessing." Isaac asked, "How did you find it so quickly, my son?" "The Lord your God put it in my path," Jacob replied. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Come closer so I can touch you and make sure that you really are Esau." So Jacob went closer to his father, and Isaac touched him. "The voice is Jacob's, but the hands are Esau's," Isaac said. But he did not recognize Jacob, because Jacob's hands felt hairy just like Esau's. So Isaac prepared to bless Jacob. "But are you really my son Esau?" he asked. "Yes, I am," Jacob replied. Then Isaac said, "Now, my son, bring me the wild game. Let me eat it, and then I will give you my blessing." So Jacob took the food to his father, and Isaac ate it. He also drank the wine that Jacob served him. Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Please come a little closer and kiss me, my son." So Jacob went over and kissed him, and when Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he was finally convinced, and he blessed his son. He said, "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of the outdoors, which the Lord has blessed. From the dew of heaven and the richness of earth, may God always give you abundant harvests of grain and bountiful new wine. May many nations become your servants, and may they bow down to you. May you be the master over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. All who curse you will be cursed, and all who bless you will be blessed."
Yeah. Sorry, I know there's a lot there, but yeah, this we're gonna dig into it a little bit here now. So, um, yeah, there is. Let me go back real quick. I don't have. We're not gonna go back verse by verse, but first thing I want to talk about this is just family dynamics. It's really interesting when you read the story here of Abraham now with Isaac, and then you read Jacob. Just family dynamics. If we go back to Isaac's dad, Abraham, and we just read that not too long ago. Abraham had God had promised them from the beginning, go, I'm going to multiply, I'm going to make you a great nation, all these things, right? Yet his wife Sarah was not able to have kids, barren, and then the so their man-made solution was to have Abraham to sleep with their servant Ishmael, not Ishmael, Hagar, and they had the son, right? And so he raised the son, whatever, and of course it brings tension to the home, and she leaves, and God says, "Hey, Hagar, like I'm gonna do something with your son. Don't worry, I'll take care of him," and then eventually, of course, Sarah has her son, right? She has Isaac, and then it brings attention again, right? There's this instance, and she's like, "Hey, you gotta get this lady out of the house," and yet God promises, like, I'm gonna bless your son, and he'll lead nations as well, and then we get the story here, and then there's other times too. There's deception. Abraham deceived some people. He and some of the things he did. There's some leaders that Abraham deceives, and there's deception. They're kind of doing these things as they're walking in God's promise, and we get to that here in this story, right? We get the same thing here of these family dynamics. You can see very clearly that these sons are favored, one by the father, one by the mother, um, and it's something we read that and we're like, man, how could they be that way? There's different relationships. If you have kids, you understand. I have different relationships with all three of my kids. I love all three of my kids. We just have different things that are different in our lives, and so I think sometimes we can paint that picture like that there wasn't cross love. We just don't know those things, but
Yeah.
obviously there was something different. There was a closeness in these two different things.
Yeah, I mean, when you have one kid that's around more, obviously you become more not attached, but you become closer with that kid. So I mean, if Esau's off gallivanting in the woods all the time, and not helping out and contributing, to the household chores and whatnot, I mean, Rebecca probably she naturally had, she talked to Jacob more, or she, so they just
Yeah.
connected on a different level.
And yeah, so we all have those family dynamics. Just things like I know, like in my household, if I'm gonna go to the store to go to, let's say I need to go to Lowe's to pick up some stuff, I can ask all my kids, and I can tell you right now, Judah's probably almost 100% gonna say he's not gonna want to go with me. Levi will probably almost always go with me, and if not, Levi, Ava will.
Ava used to be the one that went with you
Ava
all
used
the
to be the
time.
one always, like, does that mean I didn't love or care for the other? Well, no, absolutely not. But there's just certain things that we have
That you can
common
become, yeah.
interest, whatever it may be. But there's, it's a little deeper here, of course. Where this is a big deal. This story here, we're talking about. First of all, the father's dying, and then this blessing, which is a huge deal. And so they really go out of their way, for this.
Yeah.
I mean, they really think it through. I mean, hey, go get this food that your dad likes. Let's put this animal hair on you because your brother's hairy. Make sure you get the clothes because you smell like him.
Yeah, I have a feeling that Esau was one of those. What do they call him? Like a wolf man or whatever. Have you seen those like on National Geographic kind of things?
Maybe.
She put goat hair on his hands so that way when Isaac touched him, like
Yeah,
that's not a normal
goat hair is a little thicker than human hair, that's for sure.
Yeah,
So he's just a hairy guy,
he was probably like one of those wolfmen.
Now I'll say this real quick. So I'm Eric, and my brother is Jacob, and I'm the oldest brother. My brother's younger, of course, and we always go back to the story in our family sometimes because my brother, my brother is the one. Like I am like that. I would have we follow those lines, right? Jake, my brother is like he is a mama's boy. Whatever. We're both mama's boys. My mom, loved raising her boys. We have a sister as well, but. But yeah, the dynamics are funny. My brother, I'm the I'm the hairy one. My brother's not the so it's like all these things we always joke about in our family, and like, and then my brother just being the baby, like my brother would steal my birthright, whatever, and my mom would probably help him, yeah, just it's just always we always joke about this in our family that maybe I should have been named Esau, not Eric, but it's close enough. It's an
An
E and a
E.
J. So, but anyways, get back to the here. Yeah. So first of all, this is the family dynamics. It's interesting. We watched this happen. We watched it with Abraham. Now we're seeing it unfold with um, with Isaac, and Rebecca, and so like it's interesting. Our families are, we see that in our own families, dynamics like this. And I don't want to stay in that too long, but Tracy says something about the food. She goes, "Food again, sin centered around food." Yeah, I wrote that too. I actually right here. I'll show you. I said I said something about food. There's something about food. And here's what I wrote down. Esau sold his birthright for food, and then Jacob earned his blessing with food. You know,
Mm.
um, there is something about food. I don't know what that is. There's something even when we gather with people and we have food together, when there's food involved, I think part of it might be because we need food at some extent. There's lots of things we don't need, but the body needs nourishment at some point. And I think even biblically, spiritually, that we talks about, consuming and nourishment. There is something about food that is life giving. There's something about food. There is something to it. But yeah, Esau sold his birthright for food, and then Jacob earned his blessing with food. There's probably something deeper there if I had time to really think about. But I think it was interesting though to see those two things in that common denominator. Um, but as I was reading this, I've read the story so many times, and I'm like, this is so wrong. Like, why did God let this happen? I don't know if you guys read those kind of things. I'm like, why did God let this happen? Like, they stole this thing. I mean, they're lying. I mean, it wasn't just one thing. Can you imagine being
Multiple lies on
being in
top
the
of each
tent with
other.
your father who's old and can't see, and you're one deception after
And
another?
he's like, "Are you sure you're Jacob or Esau? Because you sound like Jacob." Like
See,
he literally says,
that's
like,
another thing we read into this
confronts
too.
him.
We read into this like yeah, Jacob was always probably just a bad guy, always always deceiving, always from them. He didn't give his brother the stew. He didn't whatever. Like we can paint this picture of Jacob being this awful person, but I don't think so. Because I don't think if he was, God would be like, that's the one I want to choose to lead my people. You know what I mean? So it's like we fabricate these things in our own minds, what they look like, and we make it sound this was like some cunning plan him and his mom had for like 5 years. And like, hey, eventually dad's gonna get old and we're gonna like Jacob's also being obedient to his mom. And
Right.
so like I would imagine that we make it sound like he just willingly wanted to deceive his dad. It might have been very difficult for Jacob as his dad's asking, like, "Hey, are you sure you're my son? Like you sound like one, but like, you smell and feel like the other one." Like, "Yeah, Dad, it's Esau." Like we just don't know that, but we make sometimes in our mind we like to paint like he's like just some villain, and I don't believe that God was raising up a villain, right? And so
Right.
um and we have to remember this too. So let's just read this. Genesis 25. Let's go back a couple chapters. Genesis 25, verse 23 says this. It says, and the Lord told her, he's talking about Rebecca, right, when she's pregnant. The sons in your womb will become two nations from the very beginning. The two nations will be rivals. One nation will be stronger than the other, and your older son will serve your younger son. Right? God, this is before this even happened.
Yeah, when
And we're
she's
talking
pregnant,
older,
yeah.
they're twins, right? So they're born within probably minutes of each other.
Minutes, yeah.
But that is the pecking order, right? Esau, then Jacob. And no,
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
Esau, then Jacob. Yeah, and then he's like, that one is going to serve, the older one is going to serve the younger. God already said this. This was prophetic to her before the kids were even born.
Right.
And so it's hard to think about that because it's like, so God said that it was prophetic, but it came out of lies and deception. Like, how does that all work? And so,
And that may have been part of Rebecca's, thinking and planning and, whatever, thinking like God told me that he's gonna be, I don't know.
yeah, it's interesting. Like, how does that all work? And then I go back to Abraham. I'm thinking like God promised him that he would have kids, told them, and yet they kind of did their own thing with Hagar, right? And that wasn't God's plan or purpose. But yet God was still faithful to both
Right, he
Ishmael.
still
He
blessed
still blessed both of
Ishmael.
them.
Now Ishmael and his descendants did not serve God,
Yeah.
but God's still he's true to his promise.
And it's like there was some, I don't want to say deception, but they kind of did things their own way. Yeah, God, and they're in the mess of all that. God is still good, and God was still faithful, and God made a promise, and He honors those promises. And so, like even today, like when you look at those nations over there, that it's interesting to watch like the wars and things. That is the direct result of what happened in the beginning.
Right.
These two nations that split.
This whole yeah.
And so when we see like all that stuff in Israel, we see all that. That's this, and yet these two nations that rose up. One, it's just really interesting to see that throughout history, not just biblical history, but even just world history. But here's what I had wrote down. So like this, God said this from the beginning. God wasn't surprised by this. God actually told her this was going to happen, to this certain extent, and it's hard for me to sometimes have upon those questions like, this is exactly how God wanted things to happen. Like, what's our role in this?
Well, because even you think about like when Abraham decided to sleep with Hagar, God didn't have to allow them to become pregnant
right
through Hagar, but He did.
That's where it's hard. Is like and I think last we did so. I think Tracy had mentioned something like,
it's hard. It's just stuff we can't understand. Like with God's ultimate planning or God's ultimate knowledge or whatever, how that works. It's stuff that we can't know. Like it brings up questions and we think about it, but we can't know for sure.
And me and Darlene talk about this. We were discussing. I don't want to say arguing. We
weren't like arguing.
No, not
we
arguing.
were just
discussing it, and maybe you guys have some insights. So there's two major things going on here. There is a birthright, right? A birthright.
Like a
the
pecking
birthright,
order.
basically like your pecking order. The firstborn is the birthright, right?
Back then, the firstborn would get double the inheritance what all of the other siblings got.
Yeah. So like if you were the firstborn, and I would say probably if there was females, the male, this is what it was, the pecking order would be like you would be the one to get the inheritance. That's your
majority.
That's your birthright. You're gonna get a double portion of that inheritance, as being the firstborn. And then there's a blessing, right? So the birthright was just conditional on that birth order. A blessing was something that it was also passed on, that was given, right? It was selected. And so I kind of feel like I don't know how, but I feel like the two are somewhat connected, right? It would have been Esau's birthright to receive
the spiritual blessing.
Well, the physical blessing of just like
for sure,
of the inheritance, right? Double, because he's the oldest. That would have been his birthright. But I also feel like that blessing is tied in there somehow. And so we have to remember that there's a deception going on here. And I don't know how they're tied together, but I feel like they are, where we have to remember Esau gave away his birthright, right? It wasn't just a flippant thing like, okay, whatever, you can say you're the, whatever. Like he gave that right away for that double inheritance.
Well, and one of the things that Mark said yesterday was like he acted like almost like he didn't even care. I mean, like if you look at how he's been at this point, like he hasn't been helping manage the family property and all of the servants and the fields and everything. So to him, like that birthright probably didn't feel important to him because he's like, I don't really enjoy being around here anyways. Like I don't want to manage all of this.
Right. So what I'm getting to is though, like I said, I don't know exactly how they correlate, because a birthright is just like by your birth order, and then the blessing can be however they want to give that blessing away. But like, and there was deception there, but like Esau flippantly gave away that birthright, like all that double portion, his title, his whatever. He just flippantly gave it away to his brother, and of course he said he was hungry, he's famished. But I would think they're a very wealthy family. He could have found somebody somewhere. He could have walked into the area and like anybody gave him food.
I'm sure mom had some apples sitting on the table. Or something.
It would have been some fruit snacks in the drawer somewhere or something. Yeah, something, right? We don't know, but I mean, come on. If Jacob was there, he probably wasn't too far off from the family, and so. Yeah, it was just real flippant. It seems like whatever, not really that important. I
don't really want it.
Here's a spiritual thing we don't have time for. Like he's satisfied his hunger rather than his other hunger for the Lord and his birthright. Anyways, that's a whole other thing we get into. But yeah, so like I feel like this blessing I think would have been in some ways it's Isaac could get that way how he wanted to, but I think there's a favorite of his sons, right? He probably favored Esau because they had those things in common. But also, like, I think there would have been that blessing too because of the fact that his inheritance as the pecking order of his birthright. I think this birthright would have also affected that blessing. I think they would have been together. Like you're my, and I joke around with my kids all the time. Like I told you, like son, someday you're my oldest son. You will inherit my kingdom, which isn't really anything. And then sometimes I'll joke around like, well, maybe I'll give it to your brother instead, whatever. But like, I don't know, but I feel like there's a correlation there. And in that sense, you know, with Esau treating that so flippantly, you know,
Tiffany, really quickly, I think what you're thinking of. So Esau did not give away his blessing. He gave away his birthright because that was the one he
mhm.
gave away for the stew. So that was the one. So he wasn't gone when that happened. He was gone with the blessing. Yeah, he got that stolen from him. Like, yeah.
Yeah, there's this deception we're talking about today that was there. Had Isaac known that was not Esau, there's no way he would be like,
Right,
I'm
because
giving
he had
this
planned
blessing
on
was
giving it
I was
to
going to give,
Isaac or to Esau.
but I think that they correlate somehow too because like in that blessing and also the inheritance, whatever, the story goes on. There's still much more to the story beyond this. Uh, but yeah, it's interesting though, and all
And
that.
East, I mean, well, I don't know. We gotta,
I know what time's getting.
yeah, I gotta wake up boys. Get boys to football, but there's, I don't remember what I was gonna say. Go ahead.
I don't have anything. I just turned off all my thoughts and thinking for a second. Why you could, so I could just be quiet and so you could see.
Yeah, I totally lost
Well, I'm sure it was awesome. Anyways, yeah, like I said this morning a little different. We usually I have like real deeper thoughts. I have as much questions as I do thoughts. When we come to these kind of
it. Oh,
passages.
what I was gonna say. So Esau still got blessed. I mean, just like
Absolutely.
Ishmael still got blessed by Abraham, and God still followed through on his original commitment or promise to all of Abraham's sons, which included Ishmael. It just was a different blessing, and you can read it, in the rest of that book, that chapter. I think, right, the rest of the after that, then he finds out that
And I guess the reason why I feel there's a connection between this birthright and this blessing is because remember Rebecca was like, "Hey, the one's gonna serve the other." You know what I mean? Like, and I think for her, she's like, as this is going on, like, "Hey, your father's dying, and he's about to give his blessing away," and she knew that God said that this would be the one. That's why I think they're somehow they're connected in some ways, that birthright and that blessing. And so she's like, you need to go in there and get that blessing from your dad. You know, obviously not only because I believe because he was her favored one, but also there was something from the beginning when God said the one will serve the other, and that was how it was going to be. The older will serve the younger. And I think there's something connected to that birthright and that blessing. Like, and that's why even in that's why it was so important because he did bless both of them. It wasn't.
well,
It wasn't.
I just read his blessing again. Like, it's been a little bit since I've read this.
Yeah, it wasn't part of our reading today.
No, but so I just like continued reading, trying to look to see if there was something else that I was thinking. And so like Esau came in and he's like,
Yeah.
"What's going on?" And like,
Mhm.
you stole, whatever that. Why are you sitting here? And da da da. And then he's like, "But Father, don't you have more than one blessing?" And he's like, I, I gave, like, you're gonna have to serve your brother. Like, this is the blessing that I just gave him, and I can't take it back." And then so he's like, "But Dad, don't you have another blessing for me?" And so this is his blessing. "You will live away from the richness of the earth and away from the dew of the heaven above. You will live by your sword and you will serve your brother. But when you decide to break free, you will shake his yoke from your neck."
Yeah.
That's not much of a blessing.
But it fulfills.
It does fulfill. It is prophetic.
Yeah,
it is
it's prophetic to what
but
was. Yeah.
like for Esau to hear that, he's like, "Wait, that's what I get?" I mean, that's kind of how I feel when I read it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think. Yeah, but that's something. But also, it fulfills what was happening. What God said, the one will serve the other. And this story goes on later on. They separate. I'm not sure we'll get into it. I didn't see the next couple of days reading.
Yeah.
They kind of separate. And here's the story. The part I always love about the story that I always related to me and my brother. They kind of separate. They go separate paths, but then they cross paths again. and they're both huge. Both their families have multiplied. Actually, Esau's family is like, also
It's just large.
it's
Yeah,
huge.
he had a
And
huge
Jacob's like,
inheritance, so
I'm scared. He's like scared for his life, like
well, because
of seeing his brother.
well, because he had stolen the birthright and the blessing from
And
his
he's
brother.
like, and he's like so afraid of his brother, but Esau's like embraces him, and
Yeah.
whatever. That would have been me and Jake's story, but
Yeah.
he knows better.
All right. So what
Anyways,
is our application for today?
Sis Clay.
Oh. The real issue is, Lord, help me to always protect my choices in life.
Yeah. Yeah, so application today. I would say our application today is, we don't always understand, everything. But when I watch the story of Abraham and through now his kids, to understand that God is faithful, even when we don't do things necessarily exactly right, right? Well, even when we kind of deter a little bit from the
Try to
plan,
do things our way a little
when we
bit.
try to put ourselves into what God's trying to do, even when we try to manipulate or deceive, or we try to do other ththings, that God does still have. There's this thread, this line, that God does have a plan and purpose, and He's been fulfilling that. And I want to be careful, is that because otherwise we get to this predestination. If God already knows, then why do we even try? Yeah, I don't believe that's how it works, because we see these weavings and we see these things happening. Like, that wasn't really what God had told them exactly how to do, but God, it still kind of it stays on course, right? And God, even in those hard things, even those things we don't understand, even the things that we choose and we do wrong, or deceptive, whatever, God still has a way to thread those things together and keep moving for His purpose, because God is going to do what God's going to do, and God's going to, what He
I
says.
think the weaving is a good visual illustration. God is constant. We're the ones weaving up and down. We're the ones making good choices and bad choices, but God is constant in that all. And His promises will never fail, but we have to stay close enough to that line to be able to see or hear or feel that promise.
That's good, babe.
Thanks.
Tag team.
Yeah.
That's it. There you go. All right, we gotta get out of here.
Okay.
I know that's a weird setup this morning, but
no, it was good though.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's probably, like Donnie said, that visual, we kind of brought together. But yeah, God is this constant, and how far do we, what's the word I look at? Remove ourselves from that, or deviate from that, whatever. Like, God's moving it, and we got to stay in that line, And what's nice is that God is so good, merciful, graceful, loving, that He lets us get back into order.
Right.
Even when we get astray, we come back and get back in there. And this whole thing that God is doing through these nations and these promises He started with Abraham, He's fulfilling that and He's being faithful to that. And yet, in those things, to get back in alignment of what He's doing, because He's God.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just kind of said it there too. Yeah, actually, just be real quick. So Sarah said, kind of, yeah, I love how she said it. Go ahead and read.
She said, I wanted to say that out of this, we can be confident we know who the Lord can be confident in, believing Him, praying to Him, and knowing and helping in the choices we make.
Yeah, He's that constant. He's that, we can be confident in that. So why don't you pray us out, and we got to get the kids football.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank You so much for this day today. Lord, I just pray that You would just help this word that we've read today and talked about, Lord, just to sit on our hearts. Lord, help us to know the importance of staying close to You and understanding your promises and Your blessings for us, Lord, but that we have to take part in that. We have to stay constant with You. And Lord, I just pray that You would just help us each day to remain close to You and show us what You would have for us. Be with everybody today, Lord. Thank You. I pray a special blessing on everybody who is listening to this. And we just pray that You would just lead and guide us each day to be closer to You. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, you guys have a great day. Enjoy the rain.